morning. Thank you once again for joining us on the Camnet TV Breakfast Show, where on Thursdays we always talk about nothing but politics, governance, as well as other trending current affairs that are happening in our country. I'm your host, Miriam Kemba, and of course later on I will be joined by my colleague Nelson Zulu, where we're going to be taking you for an hour or so and discussing various issues. Among them, issues pertaining to the newly formed alliance by the opposition. What is your take on that? Those are the questions that we'll be asking this morning. And you, our viewers who are watching us, please do take part in our conversation. And those who are going to be watching us live on Facebook, please do drop us that message. We'll be able to read your message. Let's get interacted this morning. I know a lot of people yesterday were received a lot of gifts because it was Valentine's. I hope you who is watching me this morning, you did receive. I too did receive my gift as well, and yeah, I'm sure a lot of people did. I'm yet to ask my colleague Nelson, who's going to be joining me later on, if he did indeed receive his gift. And we're talking about February. February is a month of love indeed, and we just need to ensure that we spread the love. But anyway, moving forward, let's get to look at the health corner and just see what the doctors have for us this morning. After the health corner, we'll be going direct into our money market before we dove into zooming in the headline stories that made news yesterday in our bulletin. But right about now, let's get direct into our health corner.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Dr. Mainga Nalube. I'm a medical doctor, and I'm with the Medical Women's Association of Zambia. For the past 3 days, we've been discussing a very important topic, which is cholera. It's important to us now because on the news we've been hearing so much about it, and so I've been trying to explain more about it so that everyone can know what exactly is this disease. So on the first day, we talked about what cholera is and what it does to the body. And on the second day, we talked about how to prevent cholera. Yesterday, we talked about the signs and symptoms of cholera. And today, we'll talk about the treatment of cholera. So yesterday, I talked about how when you notice the signs and symptoms that we talked about, the diarrhea, the vomiting, which is rice water-like, and any seizures, coma, anything, even in the babies, it's important that you rush to the nearest medical hospital. And so at the hospital, they're going to run tests. Firstly, it's important to state that just based on your signs and symptoms, it's easy to make a diagnosis of cholera. So treatment can also start from just you telling your doctor about your signs and symptoms and them knowing that it's cholera. But then also, there are certain lab tests, like on your stool, that would be done at the hospital for them to confirm that you have this disease. And then treatment would be based on that clinical and the lab diagnosis. So treatment of cholera is, in the hospital is very easy. Mostly it's based on fluid replacement. We talked already about how when the poison is in the intestines, it causes you to release large amounts of fluids and electrolytes through vomiting and diarrhea. And so treatment is going to be based on those two things. So our first treatment is through fluid replacement. And this fluid replacement is done based on the level of dehydration that the person has. So if a person is able to drink on their own, we'll be able to give them ORS, which they can drink on their own. But even from home, before you bring them to the hospital, you know how it's easy to make ORS by it's a simple salt, sugar, and water solution. So they can start this from home if they are able to drink. If they are not able to drink on their own, this fluid replacement will be done through their veins. So we call it an intravenous way. So we use an intravenous route to rehydrate this person. And then we talked about how cholera is a bacteria. It's a germ, right? So since it's a bacteria, we can also use antibiotics in the hospital. So there is a regimen that will be given by the hospital or by the WHO, which the hospital will follow for antibiotics, and that's what will be given to the patient to help them get well sooner. Also, we want to encourage this person to have a proper diet and to keep eating, so we encourage them to have meals. If they can't eat, if they're too weak to eat, we make sure that they're having light meals, things like porridge, just to make sure their energy level is increasing. Because they've been losing too much, we want to make sure we're replacing things at a good rate. And lastly, but not the least, we want to make sure that this person has moral support. You know, this is a disease that people, we hear on the news about deaths due to this disease, so people will have fear. And for a person to actually heal well, we know that health is holistic. It's not just about physical health, but it's also emotional, all those things. So they need this, as much support as they can have from their family, even from the hospital staff, to make sure that their healing process is quickened and is easier. So we want to make sure that the moral support is high. But even as we give moral support to our family and friends who have cholera, we make sure that we are keeping in mind those preventative measures that I talked about. So you make sure that sanitation and hygiene are still high, even as you take care of your loved ones. This is Dr. Mainga Naluwe. Thank you so much for watching, and this is the end of our discussion on cholera. Continue watching Camnet TV.
There you have it. We continue to inform you, our viewers, on the issue to ensure that you safeguard yourself and practice good hygiene when we talk about eliminating or reducing the cases of cholera that we continue to record as a country. And now that schools are open, we have been assured by government that various interventions are being put in place to ensure the safety and well-being of learners in various schools across the country. So make sure that if you have little ones as they go to school, ensure that you remind them to practice good hygiene and always emphasize that they always wash their hands before they eat their food, as well as any fruits. They need to ensure that they wash their hands. And always ensure that you put a mini sanitizer in their bag, so that they'll be able to use that. It is very important. And in our various localities and compound, we just need to ensure that we keep our environment clean at all times, because we can prevent this cholera by ensuring that we practice all those things that have been put in place, and we ensure that we follow the guidelines that have been put to us by the Ministry of Health. But right about now, let's just get direct into our money market. We have the United States dollar. They are buying at 26 kwacha 0.46 ngwe and selling at 26 kwacha 0.98 ngwe. We have the euro. They are buying at 28 kwacha 0.34 ngwe and selling at 28 kwacha 0.90 ngwe. We have the South African rand. They are buying at 1 kwacha 0.39 ngwe and selling at 1 kwacha 0.41 ngwe. We have the Great British Pound. They are buying at 33 kwacha 0.24 ngwe and selling at 33 kwacha 0.89 ngwe. That is our money market for today, the 15th of February 2024, as of 0725. But we do understand that these exchange rates do vary from one bank to another. We have seen that only a few cents for the dollar there on the selling part to reach 27. Yeah. Anyway, in case you have just joined us, this is the Camnet TV Breakfast Show, and this morning we are looking at matters surrounding the newly formed opposition alliance. What is your take on that alliance that has been formed by the opposition political parties? What is your take? They say that the current administration should not undermine them because they're capable of, kicking out the current administration in 2026. But what is your take over this alliance? Do you think it can stand the waters? Or do you think later on in 2025 we're going to see people, parting away? Most of the times we did see previously that most of the alliance that have been formed previously have not, stand the waters. Most of the times, when we come toward the elections, you'll find that a lot of people would break out from this alliance. But do you think this newly formed alliance would stand come 2026? But moving forward, let's just get to look at one of the interesting stories that made headlines in our news yesterday, where some members of the public described Valentine's Day as a day to express love and share moments with loved ones. Those spoken to by Camnet TV emphasized that the day serves as an opportunity to express affection and reflect on cherished memories with their loved ones. Let's get to look at that story.
Valentine's Day is an annual festival to celebrate romantic love, friendship, and admiration. Every year on the 14th of February, people celebrate this day by sending messages of love and gifts to partners, family, and friends. A check by Camnet TV around some shopping malls found entry and exit points draped in red decorations, flower and gift stands in commemoration of the day. Some of the people spoken to by this journalist say Valentine's Day is a day to spend quality time with your loved ones and share gifts.
As to me, Valentine, it's a day whereby your sons am shako choba mastenga ko chauti as a party na zishani makapos vija free time whereby mwebe neche tekebati ni ani monishna umupa nawe nika entertainment for time agawati mwaisenda go fi out fi dafi naze time fi agawati well being mwakumanchito mwabako fi ofu mwabako fi pamo fi agashitaka nono agawati mwasangara go fi.
And Andrew Mubiana says Valentine's is not mainly about gift giving, but also reminiscing about old memories with your loved ones.
To me, it's about spending time with the loved ones, maybe family or the dear ones, as well as also you can do it by the show of giving out gifts if you have, if you don't have. Just spend some quality time with the loved one and have fun together, remember the old days and where you come from.
Meanwhile, Mrs. William, a florist, says business has been good despite people complaining about the prices. They are still buying the various gifts on sale.
Today, well, business has been okay, yeah, fair enough, but many people are buying. They are buying and complaining, oh, they bought a bag of mini milk. I would have bought 2 bags of mini milk in this, but they're still buying, recognizing the loved ones, and go, it being Valentine's about.
Happy Valentine's. Cherish Siwote for Camnet News, Lusaka.
There you have it. Yesterday we were talking about all those, moments of receiving presents from your loved ones and, various gifts. I hope your viewers did receive that. And how do you interpret, or rather understand what Valentine's is all about? I don't know about you, Nelson. Did you receive any gift?
Well, I must place it on record that I did. Yes, in form of love that was shown to me in various ways. I had my beloved do to my phone call or something, which is very important. So I think it's quite interesting that this day was celebrated to the latter because a lot of individuals also had preconceived misconceptions that were there. For instance, I remember having a conversation with this lady at one of the malls here in Woodlands, and then she was like, "Look, if I do an interview with you, the one who sent me these flowers is not the original one." So like, okay, there's something like that. Yeah, but
some people were receiving flowers from different.
Well, I'm sure of that. But for me, what is so important is the fact that this day was celebrated, and we came to the office. Also, we found something interesting. There was a cake in the office, and everyone was part of that celebration. Even the technician upstairs is able to attest to that fact. Right? Let's get to move on and look at a story where opposition faction Patriotic Front Vice President Given Lubinda has called for the resignation of Republican President Hakainde Hichilema, citing perceived incompetence in governance. Speaking shortly after his court appearance at the Lusaka Magistrate Court, Mr. Lubinda underscores that the recent formation of the United Kwacha Alliance should serve as a warning to the current administration, urging them not to underestimate its significance. As we do that, we get to also usher in our guest this morning, who is State Council Sakwiba Sikota, UKA Interim Chairperson. And we get to speak more on issues relating to the future of this alliance. Is it the Messiah that the Zambian people have been waiting for? While the country is still attempting to understand the remarks made by government spokesperson Cornelius Mwetwa and subsequent surfacing of an alleged phone call recording, Opposition Patriotic Front Faction Vice President Given Lubinda says President Hakainde Hichilema should resign and dissolve parliament on allegations that he has failed to run the country. Mr. Lubinda alleges that President Hichilema has failed to fulfill his promises to the people, hence calling for his resignation so that the country can have fresh elections. The opposition vice president, however, indicates that the alleged misconception that former President Edgar Lungu is taking over as presidential candidate for the PF or the United Kwacha Alliance is unfounded.
And we are calling for Hakainde Hichilema to resign now. We don't want Zambians to continue to suffer under his misrule until 2026. No, he must do the honorable thing that anyone does. If you make a promise to people and you don't fulfill it, you at least kneel down and apologize and say, sorry, I made a mistake. Sorry, I duped you. Sorry, I lied to you. And you can't just apologize without showing recompense. You must go and create a new paradigm. And for Hakainde, who has failed the Zambian people on all the promises he made, it's the right time for him to resign and for him to dissolve parliament so that we're
Speaking after the court adjourned the matter, he is facing 4 counts of possessing property reasonably suspected of being proceeds of crime. Mr. Lubinda warned those underestimating the formation of the UKA Alliance.
The UKA is here to stay. But the question you asked me about how sure am I that President Edgar Lungu will be the candidate, I've never ever said, nor he himself has ever said, that he's going to be presidential candidate in 2026. Not for the PF, not for the UKA. This period we have between now and 2026 is a period for us to go to the Zambian people and ask them, Zambians, who amongst these leaders would you like to lead this country? The person who shall be supported by the majority is the one that... The government is yet to comment on the matter. Earlier, before Lusaka Magistrate Stanford Ngobola, Mr. Lubinda testified that particulars in count 1 to count 4 were incorrect because he did not possess properties at the day of his arrest. Nelson Zulu for Camnet News, Lusaka. Thank you so much for still staying tuned to Camnet TV Breakfast Show on a Thursday where we talk politics, policy and governance. And that was Vice President for the PF faction in Given Lubinda calling for the resignation of the Republican President, citing incompetence as well as warning those that are underestimating the formation of the United Kwacha Alliance. And this morning, speaking about the United Kwacha Alliance that was recently formed, we're joined by the interim chairperson in Honorable Sakwiba Sikota State Council just to help us understand the future of this alliance. Is it something that Zambian can label as the Messiah that they've been waiting for? Good morning.
Mwauka.
Tauka, mwaka wanchi.
Tauka bwenu.
Thank you
glad
for
to have
joining
you on set this morning.
Thank you.
First thing first, let's get to understand, you being interim chairperson of this alliance that has been formed, What is the goal of this newly formed alliance amid the social and economic challenges that the country is facing at the moment?
Thank you very much. Like you rightly state, there are a lot of social and economic difficulties that our country is going through. And it appears that we are on a downward spiral. So the UCA wants to reverse this downward spiral, to bring new hope to the people of Zambia, and to bring back a new way of dealing with problems. That is of making it where you do consult as many people as possible, where you do bring in everybody to be part of the solution, where you have a lending ear to everybody who has something to say. And I think that that will bring down tensions in the country, and it will bring about better resolution of the problems that we have.
Currently, we've seen some stakeholders that have labeled this alliance as being charged on political or on tribal lines, rather, and do indicate that, look, it's not people driven. It's not concerned about the aspect of the citizens in the country.
They're saying that it's tribal.
Exactly.
So they're saying, because I'm interim chair, so they're saying that it's a lousy. Is that what they're saying?
So the perception is that the fact that you've teamed up with a former ruling party, which is PF, there's also Mr. Jackson Silavwe, part of the pact, there's also Madam Savoy Emboela, there's also Danny Pule, there's also Mr. Harry Kalava, part of the pact, there's also Madam Tishala Kateka and others. So they're saying time and again, these leaders that are part of this alliance have been championing or alleging that these people that are part of this pact have been spearheading tribal talks in the country, and yet this alliance is saying we're people driven.
I'm really amazed that anybody could say that we've been peddling tribal talk. Give me one quotation where you say that I or one of my colleagues have been peddling tribal talk. Quite to the contrary, we've been talking about a need for everybody in Zambia to be made a part of Zambia. We've been calling, if you listen to our last presser, talking about having a Marshall Plan for the rural areas. And that Marshall Plan's aim is to make everybody feel that they've got a stake in Zambia, make everybody feel that they want to be part of Zambia. Now, I think that's clearly not tribal talk, and I think that that is clearly unifying talk.
So, before you come in, Nels, do you think the alliance will be able to survive come 2025? Because yesterday we did host Democratic Christian Party Secretary General, who said that all those in the alliance should rally behind Pastor Danny Pule as the candidate come 2026, and he should be put on ballot paper. But in your view, don't you think that will bring confusion, and do you think the alliance will be able to stand come 2025?
I don't think that it should bring any confusion, or that it will bring any confusion. I think that what your guest was saying was that in his view, the person that should be fronted is Reverend Danny Pule. And everybody is entitled to a view. Everybody does have somebody in mind that they think would be the best person to lead and be the candidate for the alliance. The beauty of it is that all of us, including Reverend Danny Pule, have stated that we are in this not for ourselves, but for the Zambian people. And we have all pledged that once we have arrived at whoever will be the standard bearer, all of us will rally behind him. Mm-hmm. If it's somebody other than myself, I'll rally behind them. If it's somebody other than Reverend Dan Pule, he will rally behind them. So there's no confusion. So everything is going to be well.
Now, let's talk about some of the major plans that you've set for the Zambians, because you claim that this alliance is coming on the backdrop or on the basis that it's going to serve the need for the Zambian people and unify the country. what are the major plans that you've set up as an alliance to ensure that issues relating to lowering the cost of living, debt burden, among others, is concerned and is actually resolved?
There's quite a number of things that we're putting in line for that. One of the major things that we think we need to do is you've got to have a well-functioning government before you can achieve any of those goals. And the major point that you must have if you're going to have a well-functioning government is a civil service that is professional and is able to work and execute the plans of government. Right now what we have seen is our civil service is being diluted into something which is not as professional as it used to be. This is being done by way of bringing in people who have got no knowledge about the civil service and how it works, bring them from outside, bring them from the street and putting them in important positions in the civil service. Totally ignoring the civil servants who have been there all these years, who know the workings of the civil service. I remember that one of the things that was done to ensure that we had a professional civil service was setting up of the National Institute for Public Administration, NIPA. And the main thing that NIPA was doing was teaching public and civil servants what the rules and regulations are, how the workings of the civil service is. I actually even lectured there. I was a lecturer at NIPA. And so the civil service regulations, standing orders, all those were taught. Before you could be promoted in the civil service to a higher position, there were certain examinations that you had to take. If you didn't take those examinations, or if you took them and failed, you would not be able to be promoted to certain positions. That way you got people who knew exactly how a civil service is to be run. Now, connecting it to the question that you raised, look at what is happening because we do not have a professional civil service. You have Ministry of Tourism, for example, will put out tenders for hunting safaris. And all of a sudden, without any proper explanation, the tenders are withdrawn, or even if there's an award on those tenders, those awards are withdrawn. What are the civil servants doing? Why is the permanent secretary doing that? Is that correct? If you had a professional civil service, first of all, the permanent secretary wouldn't do that. He would do the correct thing. But the people under him would tell him that you can't do that. You cannot just be floating a tender, 2 days later you're taking it away. And it's not only the Ministry of Tourism. Look at the Ministry of Agriculture, what they've been doing with regards to fertilizer. And what has been the effect? The effect is that we've got a totally hopeless farming season right now. That you can trace back to that incompetence. Look at the energy. Again, you have all this, you've put out tenders the following day, no, we've cancelled those and so on. Total confusion reigning. So that's why I'm saying that that is very important to do. If you do not have a professional civil service, it will be very difficult to make changes that are going to be beneficial to the people of Zambia.
But the current administration have argued that the Patriotic Front, the former ruling party, did ensure that Zambia didn't have a professional civil service because of let's talk about the employment first of all itself. They did allege that PF had employed a lot of cadres, and in terms of even awarding contracts, those who were awarded were those affiliated to the party itself. Currently, don't you think you are misguiding the thoughts when you say currently we do not have a professional civil service?
No, not at all. From what you've said, the UPND is admitting that we don't have a professional civil service. From what you have said, that's what they're saying. Now, we're talking about how are we going to make the civil service professional? That's what we have to look at. Going forward, what are we going to do? What we need to do is not to be taking somebody from the street, making them permanent secretary. Not to taking somebody from the street, making them director of this or that. Somebody who has never worked in the civil service. Ignoring the civil servants who are there, who know how things are done. So we are not misleading people. We are giving the route that will take us to a professional civil service. That is of going back to what used to happen, or that you have civil servants trained at institutions such as NIPA, that there are exams which are held so that you have the quality people being the ones who go up.
You have the Opposition Patriotic Front as part of the alliance, and there are allegations that they themselves, did make the civil service look unprofessional. Do you think they are up to date in terms of if come 2026 they are returned back into office?
First of all, we're not talking about returning back into office the Patriotic Front. That is not what we're talking about, and that is not the aim of UCA. UCA is a formation, a new formation of various political parties, of people of goodwill who want in 2026 to bring new hope to the people of Zambia. That is what our aim is. So we're not talking about going backwards, no. We're talking about the future.
But there are people alleging that the former head of state has intentions, or has shown intentions that come 2026, no matter what, he wants to be on the ballot paper.
It's very amusing to hear you say that, come what may, he wants to be on the ballot paper. When has he said that? Just think back. When has he said that? In that question you're saying, come what may. When has he ever said that? He's never said that. What he has said is that he is going to back whoever UCA is going to put forward as the candidate. That is not come what may, no. That is saying that he is going to follow whatever UCA says. That is on record. That is the position.
State Council, I know for some time now, the country has been talking about cost of living, cost of fuel here and there. Is this alliance the messiah that Zambians have been waiting for? And I'm also getting back to my question in terms of what exactly are you going to do about the cost of living? What exactly are you going to do about the cost of fuel in the country?
Thank you very much. There's lots of things that will be done. Underlying all this is the fact that things like our food, things like fuel, are absolutely essential commodities. There are things which affect every single person in Zambia. It is therefore necessary to go back and look at subsidy. Subsidy is not a dirty word. You know, some people, once you say subsidy, it's as if you've said a dirty word. It's not a dirty word. And to be honest, even the current government at the moment does do subsidies. You've heard about the fuel, that they were secretly subsidizing it. That's because they think that subsidy is a dirty word, so they do it in secret, you know, and so on. We will be upfront and do it because we believe it is a good thing. We will not do what they're now saying, that they are now stopping the subsidy on fuel to make it go up. Just that one act makes the fuel price go up greatly. We'll make sure that we do cushion the people of Zambia with regards to fuel. That has an effect in terms of transportation costs of goods. It has an effect in terms of people being able to get to work and so on, minibus rates and everything. It is a very important tool that needs to be stable in order for people to be able to plan in their businesses, to plan in their lives. So subsidy is not a dirty word.
What about the
It's
cost
not
of living?
something that should be done in secret like they do. Another aspect about subsidy, again, which they're doing secretly, and are afraid to say it because for them they think that subsidy is a dirty word, is even in terms of mealie meal. Currently, they're subsidizing mealie meal. Why do I say so? Look at the Eagle mealie meal that they're having on the market. That is not being put on the market at the actual cost that it should be. You've got the Zambia National Service, who are the ones producing it. Zambia National Service personnel who are working in the mills to do that. Zambia National Service trucks and so on transporting it. Those are not factored into the price of the mealie meal that they're producing. If they were factored into that price, they would not be able to put the mealie meal in the stores at that price. So that is a subsidy because you're not putting in all the costs on that product. So it's a subsidy. So let's forget about saying that subsidy is a dirty word. So to get back again to your question, so with those kind of subsidies, you'll find that the cost of living for the average Zambian person will go down. There are other factors as well that are going to be put in place. But I was giving you sort of like the fundamental bedrocks of what would be done.
But you also did argue that this government is not a well-functioning government, if I quoted you right. But the argument has been it is the same government that has managed to see development in rural areas with the use of CDF.
Yes, they've managed to put a classroom block here, put a clinic here, put a police post here. But if you go back in history, that has always been done by every government from UNIP, MMD, PF. They have been putting a classroom block here or there. They have been putting a clinic here or there. They have been putting a police station here or there. The difference is this. These other governments used to do it as part of, for example, if it was the classroom blocks, they used to do it as part of the budget for the Ministry of Education. Or if it is a clinic or something else, they used to do it as part of the budget for the Ministry of Health. If it is police vehicles, they used to do it as part of the budget of the Ministry of Home Affairs. All they've done is they've taken these out of the budget for the Ministry of Home Affairs, budget for health, budget for various ministries, and put it into CDF, and then started clapping for themselves. They said, you see what CDF is doing? But you can't tell me that all these other governments from UNIP to PF were not putting up schools, we're not putting up clinics, we're not providing police vehicles, we're not providing ambulances. So there's nothing to clap about. It's things that were being done even by the others, only that they're doing it through a different route. I'm sure you'll agree with me that under PF, under LMD, under UNIP, hospitals were being built,
But
clinics, police stations,
But
and
the
so on.
current administration would want to argue and say they've brought in a component where they're now encouraging various citizens to apply, for this CDF and form different cooperatives so that they can empower themselves.
That again is something which even in the other governments, you did have cooperatives being formed. It's not something which is new. Cooperatives have always been there. What this government, the one thing that I can praise them on and give them full marks on is they're very good at public relations. You know, they make everything seem as if it's new, make everything seem as if it's never been done before. First time in the history of Zambia. You know, they're packaging and so on. They're very good public relations people. But what we should not be looking at is not public relations, but we should be looking at actual delivery, not public relations. They're so good at public relations that they will even go to the extent of, for example, meeting with various people. Like they met with Osida, then you have all these pictures that come out in the press, and you don't have anything about what was discussed, what was resolved in that meeting. But with that good public relations, it looks as if, well, they're doing things. They'll meet with Winter Kalimba, and pictures are out there in the press everywhere. He's meeting, but what was discussed? Nothing is said. So this is a government which gets full marks for public relations. Full marks, but unfortunately, they concentrate so much on public relations that they've forgotten about delivery.
Your fellow opposition political parties have described this alliance as a convenience marriage, simply because the allegations that this pact is just full about hate and not providing checks and balances to this current administration.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm glad I'm here, and I don't think that there's any hate that you've detected as I've been here and as I've talked. If you've attended our pressers, I don't think that there's any hate that you can say that was a hateful statement. If you look at what we have said, we identify problems which are there, and then we say, this is how this problem can be resolved. That, if you've got all of our pressers, yes, and that cannot be said to be hate. There's no hate at all. What we have is excessive love for the people of Zambia, excessive desire to make everybody happy in Zambia.
Some of the members in this alliance have questioned the registration of the UCA as a pressure group, contending that it was supposed to be registered as a political party in order to accommodate the former ruling party, which seemingly does not have a political party at the time, which is the faction now, the Faction Patriotic Front.
Firstly, UCA is not about being a vehicle for any one individual party. It is not. UCA is a vehicle for all people of goodwill who see that we do have a problem in Zambia, who see that the way we're doing our politics is not right, who wish to have a new way of doing things, who wish to be bringing people together. It is not about ULP, it's not about FDD, it's not about New Heritage Party, it's not about PF, it's not about Citizens First. It is about the people of Zambia having somewhere and a new hope. So all those questions about that it's supposed to give PF, no. The aims of this alliance is to give the people a home. That is the aim.
Well, in case you're joining us, we're coming live to you on channel 274, that is via DSTV, on Go TV channel 25, Top Star channel 106, Facebook, as well as YouTube. And wherever you're watching us from, you can give us your contribution via the numbers on your screens, as well as Facebook, and we'll be appreciative to read those messages, even as we get to also have an interaction with UCA interim chairperson in Honorable Zakiba Skota State Council, as we discuss the future of this alliance. Is it the messiah to the current challenges that the Zambians are facing? I would also like to go direct now into one of the issue that has been there, the debt burden that the country has had for some time. As an alliance, is there an effective way or an effective plan that is on the table in terms of how you feel this plan or this issue that the Zambians have had for some time can be resolved.
Yes, certainly. Debt restructuring is a good thing. And so long as there are no conditions which are set which will be harming the Zambian people. So from what we understand, IMF and World Bank and so forth are putting up very difficult conditions. Unfortunately, the government is not being open. They are keeping all the things that are being discussed to be under wraps. They say they're doing it for the Zambian people. If they're doing it for the Zambian people, let them tell us what are the conditions which they seem to be wanting to agree to, so that the Zambian people can decide whether or not they want those kind of conditions. Having said that, unlike the government, we don't think that the only way and the only route towards resolving our debt situation is to look upon the IMF and World Bank. No. There are other things that we should be doing. For example,
let's get to Hodjon and pick this
up. I may lose my thought in terms of the answer of the question that you asked. It's a very important
let's get to
question. Okay.
Yes, you're live and direct to Camnet TV Breakfast Show. Your name and where you're calling us from?
Good morning, how are you?
Very well. Your name and where you're calling us from?
I'm calling from Msonda.
Okay, Msonda, go ahead with your contribution.
The interim chairperson, Council Savas, good morning.
Good morning, Mwauka.
Yeah, the first thing I'd like to commend you as the journalist for Camnet for the job you are doing. Then coming to the interim chairperson in Savas State Council. Yeah, what you are doing is a commendable thing, and people have welcomed the formation of this worker. So as you are directing on a lot of things, you also do it first to have the structure. You want to be very anxious. You want to set this alliance to look like a bushfire. So we need also structures to be spread in many districts. How we are doing it, we are waiting for it to guide, so that at least come 2026, we are not going to have any way of saying we give chance to these people who are different health. Buka is a very, very, very terrible, and people are expecting that this is the only Messiah for the country. We are commending you, and the way you are explaining, people have jealous on this alliance. Keep it up, and we shall continue supporting you.
Thank you so much, Msonda.
Thank you, Mr. Msonda.
Yes, you may proceed with your thought on the debt restructuring process as we get to also look at the issue of the structures.
Yes, thank you. Maybe I'll deal with the issue of the structures after I finish what I was saying. We shouldn't only have one plan, only plan A, with regards to how we'll deal with the debt issue. We should have a plan B, plan C, D, E, F, right up to Z. Our plan would be to look at where we can easily get resource. And I think that one of the things that has made us not be able to deal with it without looking to the IMF and World Bank is that the resource we have, our minerals, we've decided to give them away. We've decided to give tax holidays to these big mines. And if you look at what we could have been making in terms of tax revenue, it would be much more than the 148 million, for example, which we were so happy to be getting from the IMF. We've got the wealth within here. What we need to do is to make sure that that wealth is ours. Looking into the future, there's this cobalt thing about with the decision to mine. Not the newly discovered, they've always been there and known. But what saddens me is that our negotiators, apparently, the best they could get for us is 20%. That is the best that they could get. If I was the one negotiating, if UCA were the ones negotiating, would have gotten the Zambian people much more than 20%. Even in Tanzania, when they negotiate with mines, look at the percentages they get. Way above that. So there's a need for us to make sure that we've got people who are able to effectively negotiate on behalf of the people of Zambia and not to give away our wealth. That's giving away our wealth.
But that those that have been contending the fact that time and again, opposition political parties or leaders in the country have alleged that the tax holidays that are being given to mines, without mentioning the mining companies that are having these tax holidays. Do you have any company in mind?
It's all there. What we'll do for you is we'll come and give you a list and give you the figures that used to come in, that should have come in, looking at what the current prices of copper are, for you to be able to actually see, because it's very easy to do that, and that will produce to you and give you.
As you come to answer, just to comment on our previous caller on the issue of structures, the government has also, committed made a commitment on. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
Kindly reduce the volume on your TV set.
Hello?
Please go ahead. Who am I talking to this morning?
Talking to Francis.
It's good to know that Solis is watching. Please go ahead with your contribution, sir.
I want to ask Mr. Nakuila. You keep on condemning the government without giving them the solution. What are the solutions? Which party of form will be evident? They are the ones who borrow more. They borrow more, and then they want this government to solve the problem which the other government borrows. What is the solution now? We are in a mess now. We are not giving solutions to the government.
Francis.
The solution to the government so that the people can have that trust in you, so that you are going to fix everything, which is the way we are in the place at the moment. Give the government the solution. They are giving them at the high price. You are not giving solution. What are we going to do? What are we going to do about the fuel? What are we going to do about the cost of living? Give solutions, don't condemn. You are a state council.
Thank you so much, Mr. Francis. Thank you so much for your contribution there. Before you respond to this comment, you can just, give a comment on the need to, put up structures as early as possible, because this has been one of the concerns.
Yes. No, thank you very much for that question. I believe that was Ms. Omsonda, was it? Indeed, structures are very, very important to put up. And what we're just waiting for are one or two things. The first thing, obviously, is to complete the registration so that legally the registration has been completed. The second thing is that the doors to UCA are still open. still open to other political parties. And so we don't want to immediately get into that and then they start saying, well, you've already formed yourselves into this or that. And so we're working out modalities as to how the structures will be formed. And we won't wait forever for the other people to come in. But at the same time, as we go ahead, we'll still have to make provision as to how those who may come much later can also be incorporated in, because we want it to be an all-inclusive. But in the meantime, those who feel that UKA is a good idea, they can start meeting in readiness for when we actually form the formal structures. They can start meeting so that they know each other, so that when we say, okay, fine, now it's time to actually register the structures and so on, they are ready to move. So Mr. Musonda, do the work that you're doing. We encourage that you're doing it, and we're encouraging you to meet with others to start being ready for the formation of the structures. Turning to Francis. Francis, you're very right that our politics require that solutions are given. I hope that you didn't come to start watching the program late, because if you were watching from the very beginning, you will note that there are various solutions that we talked about. For example, we talked about how the civil service should be made more efficient so that we do not get into a situation where today the Ministry of Agriculture puts out a tender, says, okay, these are the people who have tendered. A few days later, you find that the tender is withdrawn and there's a new tender refloated. That brings about confusion. That delays the delivery of important things like fertilizer and so forth. That can be resolved by having a professional civil service who will know how you go about putting out a tender, so that you do not have this stop, start. I'm sure, Francis, you'll agree that that is a good suggestion and a good solution. If you don't, please tell us how we can get around the issue of the stop-start tender issues. The other issue that we did talk about, which Francis was asking about, is the cost of living. And one of the things that I did state, and I don't know whether Francis understood when I did state it, that the issue of subsidies, we should really look at it. Subsidies are not a dirty word. Subsidy is not a dirty word. And so in order to cushion the people of Zambia, there is a need to subsidize on certain essentials. Essentials such as mealie meal, essentials such as fuel. There's a need to do that. That is giving a solution. It is not just condemning. To say that right now the cost of living is high is a fact. Even Francis will admit the cost of living is high. So if we say the cost of living is high, we're not saying something which is hateful or anything. We're just stating a fact, which Francis, I'm sure, will concede to. And we are putting forward what we would do about that high cost of living. So Francis, I hope that having heard that, you will now come and join UKA.
Government has urged opposition political parties to refrain from alleging a shrinking democratic space, instead focus on constructive engagement within the political space. Most of the times we have seen opposition members alleging, rather, or claiming that there is a shrinking democratic space. Your view on that?
It's not alleging, it's a fact. Right now, you're all aware that Inspector General Raphael Musamba has made a decree that there can be no political rallies. It's there, it's a fact, isn't it? Is it not a fact?
Well, it's subject to debate.
Is it you covered yourselves on your station that he said that? Didn't you cover it? You did. So that is a fact. Now, if somebody can make such a decree, is that indicative that we have open democratic space? It isn't. So let's not run away from the facts. That's just one example that I've given. There's so many others examples that I could give, but let's not get into this thing of just making a list of things. That underlies that there is shrinking democratic space.
Even as we get to wrap up this interview with you this morning, I would like to get your perspective, honest as it is, even to the Zambian people, in terms of, we've seen that those UPND alliance, and now we have seen the United Kwacha Alliance being formed. What is so special about this alliance vis-a-vis turning around the country's mining sector? Because for some time, reliance has been placed on the mining sectors, that of being the country's economic turnaround.
No, in fact, I'm glad you've asked that. I think that as UKA, we don't think that the resolution of our economic problems are the mines. They're important, but they are a wasting resource which will not always be there. Our focus will be much more on agriculture. Look at the amount of water we have, the arable land that we have. Look at how much it is. Do you know that Zambia is a larger country than Ukraine? Do you know that? It's larger than Ukraine. Yet Ukraine has, before the war of course, Ukraine was supplying most of the grain for the world. A country which is smaller than Zambia. If we concentrated on developing our agriculture, we would be able to replace Ukraine from being the biggest supplier of grain to the world. We would be able to be getting in more money than we are getting from the mines. So we need to think outside the box, not just be thinking that the only way out for Zambia is the mines. No. As important as the mines are, there are other areas which are much more sustainable for us and much more within our control and much easier for us to ensure we have greater employment of people than the mines. The mines, when you look at what they bring compared to the number of people they employ, if you shifted the amount of money that could be gotten from agriculture and the number of people that would be employed, you'll find that the agriculture would cause more employment than the mining. So those are the kind of things that UKA is looking at. We need to have a change of mindset, not only in terms of how we do our politics, but in terms of the solutions that we give people. That's why I believe that there is a difference between the other alliances and the UKA alliances. We bring real hope to the people of Zambia.
But this administration, before we even let you go, this administration would want to argue that, you know, they have put up a lot of policies with regard to the agriculture sector, as well as boosting the agriculture sector. We have seen the current president on various platforms urging a lot of citizens across the country to venture into agriculture.
Yes, to go and buy tractors. Yes, yeah, I've seen that as well. The problem is that where are they going to find the money to buy those tractors? He's also told them that no, get into cattle farming. That small young lad or young lady who's in Chivodia or one of the localities, who cannot even afford a bag of mini meal, how is he going to afford to go and buy cattle when he cannot even afford a bag of mini meal? Right now, it's so bad that we now even have Pamelas being sold in regular big supermarkets. The reason that is being done is because people are not able to afford a 25 kg. They're not even able to afford a 10 kg. So what they can afford is a Pamela. So the people like Pick and Pay are repackaging midi meal into little Pamelas. So that person who can only go and afford a Pamela, you expect him to go and buy a tractor? You expect him to go and buy cattle? No, no, no. Those are fanciful dreams. Let's look at what is the reality on the ground. If indeed you said that they've made great strides in agriculture, if that were so, would we be having the midi meal shortages we have now? We wouldn't. So clearly they have not managed to meet the minimum that is required. The minimum being that we have sufficient staple food in all areas. Look at the lines that are formed whenever there is a delivery of midi meal. That doesn't show that they've done brilliantly. That shows that there's a lot more that should be done. Not only should be done, that must be done. And UCA is ready to do the necessary.
Under 2 minutes, your concluding remarks.
Thank you very much. My concluding remarks is to the general Zambian people that yes, things are difficult. Things are hard. Things have left many people despondent. But that is not what it will always be. There is a new hope for the Zambian people. That hope is UCA. UCA is out there to bring a new type of prosperity to the people of Zambia, to bring about opportunities which are fair, to bring about peace and harmony in the country. That is what UCA is. New ideas, innovation, and an invitation to a better Zambia.
Well, thank you so much, State Council, for making time with us. Let's also take a break and get to look at a story where Minister of Agriculture has assured citizens that adequate maize stock, despite a dry spell, are going to be put in place, as we also get to ensure that our guest leaves us this morning. But we do pay much appreciation to you that also were able to call in at the time we had this discussion.
Thank you very much.
Agriculture Minister Ruben Mtolo says the country has enough maize stock in reserve and has urged Zambians not to panic amidst the dry spells being experienced in some parts of the country. Speaking during the handover ceremony of equipment from Musika Development Initiative, Agriculture Minister Ruben Mtolo says the 4 parts that are not affected are able to feed the 20 million Zambians. Mr. Mtolo also reveals that government has since suspended all exportations of maize.
As at now, I would like to inform Zambians not to panic in terms of stock position, because the agency has some stock, the private sector has some stock. Come March, we're going to start getting our early maize, and definitely come the time when the rain-fed maize is dry, we'll aggregate and see how much stock we have to slow down the issue of trying to export the maize. Is to first of all hoard the maize in our storage facilities so that we see what crop we have coming from the rain-fed maize, especially in the parts of the country where we are having good rain.
Meanwhile, Swedish Ambassador to Zambia, Johan Hallenborg, says it is a pleasure to contribute to the establishment of Lima Radio, as mass media plays a huge role in the dissemination of agriculture technologies. He says Sweden will continue to strengthen the relationship with the Zambian government in various ways.
Sweden is therefore proud to contribute to the government's efforts in improving agriculture and livestock production here in Zambia. Through our partner organization Musica, Sweden provided technical equipment to the amount of $140,000 for the establishment of Lima Radio. I am convinced that this investment in Lima Radio, an interactive media platform, will facilitate effective delivery of extension services to smallholder farmers on production, agribusiness, risk reduction, and post-harvest management.
And National Agriculture Information Services has promised to utilize the donated items efficiently.
I wish to assure you, Mr. Ambassador, that NAIS will utilize Lima Radio to contribute significantly to the promotion of an efficient, competitive and sustainable agricultural sector that guarantees food security, increased income and improved livelihoods for the majority of our people who live in the rural areas.
Among the equipment donated are 15 computers which have been given to district agricultural information officers to facilitate data collection and processing, recorders, and a Lima radio station motor vehicle. Cherish Sibote for Camnet News, Lusaka.
I can now begin to disclose that we worked well with Mr. Chimbakambwi to bring down Edgar Lungu.
Debates have continued over the minister meant in this statement. This was during a media briefing on Monday, February 12, 2024. Governance activist and human rights advocate Wesley Mianda has urged Information and Media Minister Cornelius Mwetwa to clarify what he meant when he said he worked well with Chimbakambwiri to bring down former President Edgar Lungu and his party.
That alone is not settling well with the UPND government, because it's like even the issue of arresting, the issue of actually sending Dr. Chimba to jail is not fair. People feel the Honorable Minister should also face the wrath of the law. Now, that alone, I think, needs some kind of clarification. The Minister should come out clearly to actually explain what he really meant by saying they worked well with Dr. Chimbakambwiri.
That aside, an audio alleged to be a private phone conversation between Information Minister Cornelius Mwetwa and a journalist was aired on a local TV station and circulated on social media, sparking debates among members of the public.
This statement which is circulating to say I have said that Chimbakambwiri were working together and he was going to issue tribal remarks. No. The point I was making there was this one, which should not even be news, I believe, in any serious media outfit. The point I was making is that we worked with Chimbakambwiri to bring down PF, full stop. Then he went on to issue tribal remarks, knowing that his candidate will be hated by the people.
However, this has displeased the ruling United Party for National Development, UPND. Party Deputy Media Director Shero Katambo has demanded that both the Zambia Police and the Independent Broadcasting Authority IBA conduct investigations to ascertain whether the media house and its employee are not in violation of the Cyber Security and Cybercrimes Act No. 2 of 2021 and the Independent Broadcasting Authority IBA Act No. 17 of 2002. Mr. Katambo believes that the minister, who is also chief government spokesperson, still enjoys the right to association and that his rights must be respected.
As a UPND, we are saying, can the Zambia Police Service and indeed IBA investigate whether the media house and its employee did not abrogate some provisions of the law. We've cited the Cyber Security Act, which we feel was abrogated, because it is very specific on what happens when somebody, without permission, gives audience to another person, which we feel should not have been the case. The IBA Act also is very specific in the protection of people's rights, human rights and dignity.
Mr. Katambo further says the United Party for National Development, UPND, will protect and defend its officials at party and government level that are becoming targets of malicious media campaigns with intent to destroy their reputation. Vincent Piri for Camnet TV News, Lusaka.
Thank you so much for still staying tuned to the Camnet TV Breakfast Show. We now transition into our next interview, where we are joined by the National Restoration Party Secretary General, Mr. Martin Mulenga, who is going to help us to discuss various issues, among them about the newly formed alliance by the opposition political party. And you should understand that NAREP is in an alliance with the United Party for National Development. Good morning.
Good morning, and good morning our viewers out there.
We're glad to have you on set this morning.
Oh, the pleasure is mine.
Before we delve into the newly formed alliance, how is your alliance with the current administration, the UPND?
I think for ourselves, we joined the UPND alliance, I think as National Restoration Party, a year before the 2021 elections. We joined on the premise that we needed to work together and remove the Patriotic Front that time because of what we saw happen in our nation. So what motivated ourselves was that we needed to change the way the country was being run. We saw how there was so much corruption, cadarism. We saw how reckless they were in terms of borrowing and many other issues that we thought this country should not move in that trajectory. So we've been working with the UPND until in August 2021 we managed to remove the Patriotic Front and ourselves as UPND Alliance having to form government. So our relationship with the UPND would say we're still together, and we feel that the burden that they have is our burden. So we are yet to discuss many other issues as we approach 2026, because we still have a long way to go. Because as alliance partners, we feel that there's always time to look at what is happening and how do we work together for the sake of this country.
But come 2026, is NAREP still going to be in an alliance with the UPND?
It's too early to call because alliances are relationships which you forge because of certain things that are happening in the country. That's how come we are saying it's one step at a time. But we feel that in 2021 we did make the right decision to work with the UPND. And moving forward, we feel that with the continued discussions that we have with our friends in the UPND and other political parties, we feel that there's always time that we can sit down and discuss how we can work together as we approach 2026.
Let's talk about the newly formed alliance, the UKA alliance by the opposition. Do you think this alliance is somehow intimidating the UPND alliance?
Not at all. We are glad for one thing that what we did in 2021, our friends, the Patriotic Front, were actually demeaning it. They were saying it's nothing, it will not take people anywhere, what are these alliances for? But today, they themselves have realized that it's important to have alliances. You know, we are looking at the 50% plus one threshold for one to get to State House. So we feel this alliance thing, with what happened in 2021, we set the pace, and we feel it's the way to go for this country, because we know that there are political parties in Zambia that survive because of individuals. Yes, it takes a group of maybe 10 people to register a political party, but we've seen that there are political parties in this country where one happens to be the president, the secretary general. When there are by-elections, he contests. If there's anything, there's ZCDI The CID meeting is the one to represent the party. Any other that they would have in terms of having to invite those political parties, the same individual is everything. So we feel that because in this country there's no law that stops people to form political parties, we have a number of political parties. Some are there and they've been there for a long time. So we feel that alliances are the way to go. And ourselves, we are proud of ourselves because what happened in 2021 was as a result of the alliance. And we see now our colleagues, now the 8 of them, have awakened and formed that alliance that they formed. And if anything, they should be coming to us for consultation because we've been through and we understand what an alliance is and what makes a strong alliance. So they should just come to us for consultation if they so feel.
Mr. Blenga, are you somehow confirming that this alliance has potential come 2026 to form government?
Any other political party that is formed, the sole purpose is to form government. Even ourselves at NAREP, we didn't form NAREP to just exist for the sake of the existing. We formed NAREP knowing that at one time we should be an alternative to government. If we feel as a party we need to contest at presidential level at any given time, if the National Executive Committee does agree, we are ready to participate. That's how political parties are formed. So if an alliance of this nature is formed, the only thing that we can hope for them is to work and give people an alternative. But of course, we want an alliance that will give ideas on how governance issues are to be, or how government must be run. Not for the sake of just wanting to say we are the alternative, let's remove this. Let them give us what they have to offer. If they talk about corruption, they should say this is how we're going to do it to alleviate corruption. If they talk about the economy, this is what we need to do to improve our economies. If they talk about the education, there is this free education. Ourselves, apart from free education, probably will be giving free food as you go for break. We need to know all those things that our people must be able to understand, to say they are an alternative and this is what they have to offer other than what is existing. So these are the things that should propel them into forming an alliance. But if it's the sole purpose is to just say we remove to replace, then it's of no essence.
This alliance has indicated some of the things that it will do in an event it forms government in 2026. And it has also went further to claim that it is the Messiah that the Zambian people have been waiting for.
It's the Jesus. Okay, that's laughable. Because, for the National Association Party, we feel most of those people that are in that alliance have been tested before. Our big man, Sakwiba Skota, has had that political party, LP, for over, I don't know whether it's 20 years. It has not produced not even a councillor. So I don't know what is there for him to offer this time around. You look at Shalakatekas, it's called Heritage. They have not produced anything to show in terms of numbers. They did participate in the 2021 elections. The number of votes they got were below, I would say, maybe 1%. So when you're forging an alliance, there are certain things that you need to look at. What is it you're going to put on the table? If I say we want to buy a house and we're in partnership, and then go to 10 million, you start with a 2 kwacha, or with 1 kwacha. I think for me, it's something they need to look at. What is it that they're going to put on the table? And also, our Zambian people will be asking questions. Of those that are in the alliance, what kind of politics are they bringing on the table? Is it thuggery? Is it corruption? Is it what? So the Zambian people will be able to tell. But they have the rights to associate. They have the rights to form that alliance. And it's good for the nation. Because now we are saying democracy is able to thrive. Because no one will stop them from doing that. Which is just good for the nation. And we want them to go ahead and give us probably the alternatives. But for as long as they do not tell us what they are able to offer, we still have to question them. What is it that they want to give us?
Mr. Mlenga, I'm also forced to ask this question.
Sure.
We've seen the UPND alliance come in shape. We've seen also the United Kwacha alliance coming on the table. Is it the alliance that Zambians really need as a solution to the current challenges that are there, or there's a certain political party somewhere that Zambians are waiting for?
Actually, alliances are formed because of you having to put together, I would say, like minds. If we need to follow this path, you and I must be able to agree. What do we want to go and achieve when we go to that direction? So that's why I was saying they need to ask themselves and tell the Zambian people, when we form an alliance, the thing that we want to come and do is probably to bring free education. Like there is free education, how better would they do it? For instance, CDF, that is 36 point something million, they themselves should give us to say, with this CDF, ourselves, we want to abolish, for instance, CDF because we've got this alternative. What they need to push forward are ideas. Then the people of Zambia will be able to check through to say, with this kind of leadership, are they going to have, or do they have capacity to provide us with what they are talking about? Do they have capacity? That's why I was saying some of them have got a proven record. We've seen them rule. We've seen them being in opposition. What is it that they've offered? Because in Bemba we say, ichikwanka vachikoenda kumambalani iweta wampera kufenda nguri switi twasashitira injinga. It becomes very difficult. I need to have confidence in you. I need to trust you from what you proved to be in terms of leadership. Take for instance, I would say one of them being ECL. ECL was president for Zambia for 7 years. So the question that the Zambian people would ask, how was his leadership? I will tell you that some of the people that that voted for the UPND were saying we cannot allow. If you look at the voter turnout, the numbers that came out to come and vote, the people of Zambia rejected the Patriotic Front under the leadership of ECL, Edgar Chagwanungu. Why? The Zambian people realized thuggery became the order of the day. That even if you are being interviewed like we being interviewed, you don't know that maybe a card would buy gin and just say interview to Wakanya that will fire. The Zambian people said, we cannot allow this. We saw how these cadres in the PF were threatening even the police. Next time you hear there's a transfer of this police officer to a very remote area. So they infused fear in our people in government. So civil service became compromised.
And someone might argue to say that the same remnants are beginning to show, because we've had pockets where some cadres are able to walk into some local authorities. For instance, what happened in Eastern Province. For instance, what happened in Copper Belt. So is it right to say that politicians are just the same?
No, not at all. The police, I would say now, even these people in government have been given leverage to operate. You've seen them being arrested. We've seen them being disowned by the party, starting from the Secretary General and the President. And it's been on the, it's always been out there telling us to say, if you misbehave, you are on your own. That's the common phase, I think, even the party leadership in the UPND and those of us that are in the alliance would know that the President has put it blunt, that if you are found wanting, you are on your own. Meaning that if there are those pockets that you're talking about where people are able to misbehave, like what we saw in the Patriotic Front, they are on their own and they need to be arrested. The difference is, at that time, there wasn't anybody that was being arrested. Because we saw that the PS would be in the office aimlessly not knowing hopelessly not knowing what to do. Because those cadres had waged so much power to an extent that they would go to the police and start slapping police officers. That's what we saw. So if we are seeing those pockets, like you mentioned in K2A and all that, even the numbers themselves are able to tell, isolated. But if they are found, they are to be arrested.
But they say baby steps. Everything starts with baby steps for them to materialize into something that's big.
It takes leadership. It takes leadership to come out and say, would not condone this. and the police know that this government, there's that political will to stop such kind of things to happen. And that is which is good. If your father says, Ngawaisa 22 hours, then Waisa 23 hours, and your father says come in, then you say the leadership in that home is the one trying to promote that kind of lawlessness. But what we are saying is that the police have been given leverage to operate. Arrest if you find someone that's doing that.
And someone might argue to say those pockets that were observed in Eastern Province as well as Kitwe, we haven't had information of any that has been arrested. So it places now the disowning just on paper not happening.
Actually, you know, to arrest, I think I may not have the information as regards, I'm just getting it from you. But really, if you happen to assault me, I need to take it upon myself to have to go and take the medical report, take the case to police, then the law will take its place. But if there are no issues that I have not reported this matter, I don't know how now the police can operate. They don't operate in a vacuum. There must be a victim that we need to take the steps forward.
I know.
As we come to the end of our program this morning, the UCA Alliance has alleged some of the things. You being part of the UPND Alliance, what is your comment? One of the things they have alleged is the CDF is just the same. Nothing has changed. They've just gotten funds from different ministries and put all those funds together and call it a success that they have increased the CDF and CDF is doing wonders. Meanwhile, in the previous government, we saw still CDF was, doing all these wonders. Among other things they have pointed out is that the current administration has not been truthful to the Zambian people and also address the high cost of living among them, ensuring that the price of mini meal is very affordable to the Zambian people.
Okay, I think there are two, the cost of living as well as the issue of the CDF.
Yes.
You know, the president did launch out the devolution of power, meaning that the government was emphasizing the point to decentralize, where people in their localities or in their communities are able to decide on what they want to do with the money being given through CDF. And that's how I think development is able to reach out to as many places as possible. We saw that under central government system, we saw that development was so much centered to Lusaka and these along the rail, Ndola, Kitwe, and all those areas. But with decentralization, where, let's say, a constituency in Kaoma gets 36 million for a period of 5 years, 36, I'm just giving an example. They themselves would be able to decide on what kind of project they want to put up with the money that they have. Meaning that if they want a police post, within themselves, under the Constituent Development Fund, they are able to agree to say, this committee in Kaoma wants to do a clinic, wants to do a police post, wants to do feeder roads, wants to do desks. Within themselves, they are able to make that decision. Unlike the central government group, yes, they would operate, but probably they will pay much attention to Lusaka. So with devolution, there are successes that this CDF is able to put forward, and they themselves, even the members of parliament that are in parliament under the Patriotic Front and Independent, are able to testify that CDF is doing miracles and it's a game changer. Take for instance Kachiria, which is an opposition led constituency, and they are doing wonders in that area. And if all other members of parliament probably can emulate what is happening with Honorable Sande Chanda and also do what they can within CDF, I think that would make a difference in their constituencies. Now imagine if there was no CDF, that constituency Kachiria, which is so vast, will have to wait for central government to decide for them to have a police post. And that without a bureaucracy and to take a lot of time, they may not have it within the 1 year period. So this CDF, probably they are yet to understand how it operates, but really even their members of parliament are able to confess that it's making a difference in their areas, which is just very good for us, and we need to put credit where it's due. And we feel that the CDF is good, and it's the first time that we are having such amounts in terms of CDF. So obviously there will be those teething problems where other members of parliament might not know how to to deeds base, how to apply and all that. There are people not being sensitized on how to apply for grants, on how to apply for money in terms of projects and all that. So the members of parliament need also to be educated. Unfortunately, we have members of parliament that cannot even read a project. We have them. Probably they're just mere grade 12s and probably they may not understand the intricacies on how money can be managed. So it's upon them to get to understand and learn from other members of parliament that are doing well and be able to do what they can under the CDF. I think on that, that's how I can put it. They need just to learn how to use it. You talked about the cost of living. Yes, we have a problem and we have a challenge in that regard. But the question should be that, how have we found ourselves in this predicament? We found ourselves in this predicament because of the debts that we got as a nation. This country was, I would say, suffocated with debt. That's how come you saw that the president had to make a lot of efforts into wanting to have our debt being restructured. We saw him go to IMF, we saw them going to these private lenders to see how within ourselves we can have a breathing space to see how we can manage our resources properly so that we can put money into these needy areas like education, health, and many other areas. It's like in a home, my sister, where mwalikongula na mkwata motoka, mwalikongula na mkwata stove, mwalikongula na mkwata fridge. Kapesi kobe kali lamba fe nkongole sheka sheka. Kayo kushana net pay na net ya, for argument's sake, 500 kwacha. Timwale na mapanganda imu. Awa me 500 kwacha mwenye mwenda mwenye mwenye koko mwishite na sopo na safu. Kari sosi chani kache pesha. Why? Because that car that you see there, you got it from a bank. That fridge that you are seeing there, you got it from this other lending institution. That carpet, that chair, that's what Zambia became. And we became suffocated with debt. So as a result of that, we didn't have any resources. The Eurobonds were due. How do we pay? Where would we get the money? Sorry, you were sharing ni 1,500 kwacha. For argument's sake, 800. What the government did, let's talk to our lenders. How can we pay? By probably we elongate this period, then the installments become smaller, such that with that income that's remaining, we are able now to buy food, buy cooking oil and all that. That's where we found ourselves into this. And unfortunately, these people in the opposition, our friends, don't want to explain that. Don't want to tell the Zambian people. What they are telling the Zambian people is not what is not working. But how we found ourselves into this predicament, they don't want to explain to the Zambian people, which we feel is quite unfortunate. But we know that the Zambian people are able to listen to us and tell them how we found ourselves in this predicament as a nation. Hence the high cost of living.
Thank you so much. That was Mr. Martin Mulenga, the National Restoration Party Secretary General, who is helping us discuss various issues pertaining to the newly formed alliance, opposition political alliance. This is where we come to the end of our program this morning. I was your host, Miriam Kaimba, as well as Nelson Zulu. Please do join Arthur Kaputula tomorrow, as well as Vincent Piri, as they take you into business. For now, it's bye-bye and stay blessed.
Thank you.